Ever wonder what's the secret recipe to hire the best BDR candidates? Today, we have Jack Knight, the tech sales coach with over 5 years of experience, here to share his top tips. Who's Jack? He led SDR teams, hired 30 plus reps with 93% success rate, and he helped launch over 70 SDR careers. Welcome back to the Outbound Kitchen podcast. If you're new here, I'm Eric, the Outbound Chef, the host of this podcast. My goal is to create the go-to resource to scale outbound and make it your number one growth engine. In today's episode, Jack shares his top 3 interview questions, the key skills he is looking for, and real-life example of top candidates. Let's dive in. So what's your 3 go-to questions or ways to assess them?
So 3 top questions during interviews with SDRs are actually pretty simple. These aren't going to be questions you've never heard before. They're all super basic, but they're basic on purpose. So the first question is always, tell me about yourself. The second question is always going to be, what research have you done on our company? Third question is, what questions do you have for me? And obviously we'll go through those, Elric, and break them down. But I just wanted to start there. There's nothing sexy about those. There's nothing unique or special. They're very basic, but they're basic on purpose.
Okay, so let's start with the first one. So let's unpack the first one. Mm-hmm. So you said, tell me about yourself. So why are you asking these questions, and what are you trying to assess or evaluate your candidate on? Is it soft skills or hard skills? What do you do here?
Yeah. So it's actually way more of the soft skills. And in general with SDRs, I actually had a post today where I said any hiring manager that requires previous SDR experience is whack, because you don't need previous SDR experience to be a top SDR. In fact, I was thinking about this earlier today. Every single one of my high performers was not an SDR before they came to my company. And honestly, every time I've hired for previous SDR experience, 50-50 split between them being good or not good. Not even amazing. I mean, just good. Like, are they even good in general? So why I start with this question is because I want to hear your soft skills. I want to hear, can you hold conversation? Are you a confident communicator? Can you get the point across when you're trying to tell a pretty complex story of your life, of yourself? So this question is super vague. And it's kind of this big, like, it's almost like a diving board into a big pool of like, tell me about yourself. And if you're someone who can structure that story of who you are, how you grew up, what your why in life is, and how that translated professionally to why you're on this interview today, that tells me you're a phenomenal communicator. But a lot can go wrong in that answer where, you tell me all about all of your work experience and nothing about you as a human. Or you go on some long rabbit trail about some bad experience at an employer, yada, yada, yada. The point is that's a big question because I want to see how you'll do with that level of ambiguity.
And let's focus on, for example, because I know this question is super vague and sometimes candidates, they can rumble for 5 minutes and some people are super quick, so 30 seconds. So what are you looking for in terms of do you prefer to have like someone with 1 minute or like 5 minutes, or what's your go-to?
That's a great point, that there is a spectrum, and I've heard both. Yeah. You don't want to be on either side of the spectrum. You don't want to be the 30-second person because you did not share enough. You don't want to be the 5-minute person because I'm already asleep in my brain. One thing that you have to realize as a candidate is this interviewer right here has been through probably 2 to 3 other interviews that day. They did 5 yesterday. They're going to do 5 tomorrow. They're hearing the same stuff all day. So for me to tune out is easy. But it's that sweet spot. You're right. Between probably 2 minutes is what we want to shoot for there.
Gotcha. And could you share some examples of candidates that you've seen doing a great job at this? So I know you mentioned like a few things that were important for you, but could you share some examples of that?
Yeah. So I think the cleanest frame to use, and all interviews are using frames. Every time they ask you a question, you should have a frame in your head of how you're going to answer it. This is a simple frame. Start personal. Share in your childhood, in your background. Hey, so growing up, my name's Jack. Thanks so much for having me on this interview today. Tell me about yourself. So first, growing up, I grew up in this kind of family. As I grew up, we ran into this hardship, or I went through this challenge as a child. That challenge actually created a really deep why in my life to go do X. So because of your childhood, this is like your big life motivator, your big life driver. And so as I grew up, I was able to dip my toes into different sales opportunities, was able to learn about, just always competing and hustling and grinding. Like athletics is a great thing to bring up. But what I want to do professionally is I want to be in sales because it allows me to go accomplish that big life why. So the frame is personal. How did you grow up? What challenge arose? What's your why in life? And why is sales the thing that's going to be a vehicle for you to go accomplish your deeper why in life? And that gives the interviewer a very comprehensive picture about who you are personally and professionally. And honestly, not many people are going to be willing to share their life why and their struggles in life right off the bat. So you're winning an ally early in that interview.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point also to have that upfront in the hiring process, because I know sales, it's especially for people who are trying to get into sales, it's you want to know if they have a strong why or big why to go into tech sales, because it's not easy. And at least for you, you have already something. You already know if they have good reasons to start a career in sales.
Yeah, absolutely. That motivation piece is huge.
The next question was talking about any tips for candidates, but I think you gave already a great framework. So do you have anything else you want to share for this question?
No, just be sure you practice it, because there's no excuse for not having a good answer to the number one question you're going to get asked in an interview. That just shows you didn't prepare well. You're going to get asked why sales. You're going to get asked, tell me about yourself. You're going to get asked all these questions. Please practice it. Please have a good frame in mind.
Got you. Now let's go to question number 2. So you are saying you asked the question, what stood out to them in the research? So why are you asking this question? And what soft skills are you trying to assess on this question?
Yeah, there's a few ways this question gets asked, but we're all trying to assess the same thing, which is, did you prepare? So you could hear what you just said, what's something that stood out to you when you were researching our company? Or I've heard it asked very bluntly, do you know what we do? Can you explain to me what we do? What did you learn in your research? All those questions, we're asking for the same thing. Did you prepare? And the reason is, we don't want to feel like we're just one more company that's on your list. We want to know that there is real intention and that you're actually excited and you actually understand what we do. Otherwise, we almost feel like we're being used as companies. Oh yeah, we're just another tech company. So you should come prepared with some basic facts. And I was actually talking to Dale Thorne about this, and he laid out a really good framework, which is start with the cold, hard facts first. So when you're rolling up to an interview, you should have a few pieces of info ready to go. You should know when they were founded, what stage they are, and when their last raise was and how much that was. You should also know who their CEO and CRO are. And if you can, try to learn the founding story. I know this is a lot. There's a lot of questions, but y'all, with ChatGPT, can we be real? It's not that much, right? Just do a little prep, 15 minutes. And then those basic facts right there are already going to help you outshine most other candidates. So when it comes to hey, what research have you done? Or do you know what we do? You want to lay out all those facts right away as just these are some quick facts. So yeah, I know you guys were founded in 2006. You're a Series C. You just raised 20 mil. Congrats on that. I know that CEO is X person, CRO is Y person. But something that stood out to me when I was researching you is, so this is half the answer so far. You just flexed on them so hard that you did all your research and you know who they are. But now you're going to come in and give the real answer. And the real answer, y'all, is go find a case study that you think is actually somewhat interesting. And it's super simple. It's basically one of the things, as I was watching YouTube last night and I was going deep on your website, notice how I said last night, you're showing them that you're a hard worker, that you stay up late to research and stuff. They're going to love that. I saw this one case study where you guys were able to help Acme company. And, the challenge they had was this, and that results you got were this. And so I think that's super interesting because I've always had an interest in industry. And so to see a company that's uniquely helping someone get that result is something I was fired up about.
Nice. Actually, for people who are going to listen, Acme, for those who don't know what it is a generic company. Because I'm saying that because last week on Reddit, someone was asking, what's Acme?
What is
because
Acme?
I see it. Yeah, exactly. So Acme, it's a generic name for a company. So
yeah, it's just like XYZ company. Yeah,
exactly. Let's focus now on a real example. So could you share like someone that maybe you remember recently or when you are at your previous company, Clearbit, or for example, that really someone who stood out on this question?
Yeah, I think a specific example that comes to mind is actually was when I was at Clearbit. We had just done a brand new product launch. And if you were paying attention to our website and our marketing collateral and stuff, you would have obviously seen it. I interviewed a ton of candidates for the opening we had, and only one person mentioned it. Only one person said, hey, I saw you guys just launched this new feature. It looks really cool. I'm not an expert, but based on my understanding, it's going to help you go do X, Y, and Z. That's all it took for me to go, okay, cool. I like you because you're not just white noise. You're different. So that's not a hyper specific example in terms of the language they use, but it was a product launch that they picked up on and no one else mentioned.
Nice. For me, I have an example at my previous company in the hiring process, because they were saying that they researched me. I said, okay, what did you learn about me? I say, I was listening to one of your podcast episodes when you were saying this. I say, okay. At least, because it's easy to say like, yeah, I've done my research. Yeah, what did you learn about when you are doing your research? So yeah, this person specifically really stood out when basically they showed me that they were listening to a podcast episode from, it was 2 weeks ago, something like that, and it was relevant for the part of the interview that we are talking about. So that was really, really great to show, to stand out.
That's huge. I mean, here's the thing. If you're a sales leader and you're running these interviews and someone says they've researched, please check them on that. Please be like, interesting. Okay. Can you tell me specifically something you heard or you read? Because 50% of people are going to wash out right there. Please ask that. That's one thing for sure. Another thing, now that you brought that example up, I've had SDRs bring up call blitz before, like, because I have this part-time SaaS thing. And when they do that, it kind of strokes my ego a little bit, even though I hate my ego, but we're human. It feels good. So that probably felt good for you, Alric, right? Like, you watched my podcast? You listened to something I said?
Yeah. Which episode?
Yeah, exactly.
Because,
exactly.
Like you said, because I want to know, because it's not just because of interviews I'm doing that, but it's because on LinkedIn, a lot of people who send me a connection request say, oh, I love your podcast. We love to connect. Okay. So, and it's not like, if it's an idea, I'm okay to connect with them, but sometimes it's like, you don't know if they're going to pitch you behind that. If it's just like, okay, I'm going to personalize that, and they can send that to a lot of people with a podcast. So you don't know. And why do you like this podcast? What's your favorite episode? And generally ask those follow-up questions to see if they are really listening to the show.
Yeah.
I have I don't know if did you read the sales? I think it was on the book of Trish Bertuzzi, or I don't remember if she told that on the podcast actually. Did you read her book, the Sales Development Playbook?
Yes, I have. I think it's up here in my bookshelf somewhere.
Well, I don't remember if it's in the book or she told that on an interview, but I remember this specific question you just mentioned here. She's really hard on this question. So, for example, if someone can't say anything about, for example, she asks 2 questions. What do you know about me? What do you know about my company? And if the person can't reply to those 2 questions, she ends the interview.
Yeah, that's a terrible candidate. Why did you apply for a job where she has so much info out there? I have so much info. Why did you apply for that job if you weren't going to prepare? It makes no sense.
So you share the story. Now let's talk about the tips. So what candidate can do on this part of the interview to stand out actually?
Yeah. So what I have my clients do is we have a very simple template. Whenever they apply to a job, they have these questions, and we just have ChatGPT go fill them out for them, which is super simple. So again, when were you founded? When was your last raise? CEO, CRO, potentially founding story. And then you also want to pull up a case study. Make sure you've got that, flash spark noted in your brain so you can mention that. And then one more thing that's super essential is when you're doing these SDR interviews, you want to talk about the 4 questions, is what I call them, the 4 questions. Persona, pain, value prop, objections. You want to understand what persona do they sell to? What pain does this persona encounter where they need a solution? What does that company do? What are the common objections they're going to hear? 2 ways you can get those answers: ChatGPT, YouTube, website. The better way, go cold call some SDRs and AEs from the company. Super simple. Just call them. Hey, I've got an interview tomorrow. Wanted to ask you a few questions. Based on my research, I understand you sell to CMOs. It looks like because they have these like lead traffic issues, and this is how you help. Am I on the right track so far? Oh, you need to, we sell to this, blah, blah, blah. Cool. And then common objections, like, what are you guys hearing when you're making your cold calls? Boom. Now you roll into this interview, you drop all 4 of those answers. I also understand that you sell to marketers because they have this issue and you help with this. And I actually talked to so-and-so SDR and they let me know that the common objections are this. I mean, that is just like a mic drop. Like, wow. So you know who we sell to. You did all that research. You talked to one of my teammates. Yep. Like, you are eons ahead of any of my other candidates right now.
Yeah, if I have a candidate doing that, that's already they are in the top 1% candidate just by doing that.
Yep.
Okay. On my side, I know some people are doing, and I've been doing it also. Earlier you were talking about researching the CEO or the CRO. So I use Perplexity. I'm not using ChatGPT for my research most of the time because Perplexity is great to gather the source of different websites and recent news actually. And they can read the transcript of podcast episodes or YouTube videos. So what I do with that specifically is I look for interviews with leadership because most of the time you will find more info about the company, the current struggle, the main initiative, the product launch, for example, stuff like that you can use like you're saying in the interview. So my last job, actually, when I prepared the interview with the CEO, I listened to 6 interviews with the CEO before being on the call with him. Obviously, here I'm mentioning that because I was going to interview me, so that's why I was preparing. But I think you can still do that even as an SDR level because you understand the vision of the company, because the CEO, they work on the vision, but also the direction of the company, which market they're focusing on, product launch, what about the sales team? And I knew, for example, from this company that outbound was always a struggle. So when I was on the interview, I already knew that was a struggle, and so I led with that, and the conversation was completely different I was not prepared for this one. So.
Yeah, and think about from their perspective, how many other candidates came prepared with 6 interview from the CEOs and quotes and stuff that you memorized? No one else did that. And so I already hear like in the audience, in the comments, I see this all the time on stuff I post, like, but that's too hard. It's like, well, not having a job is hard. What do you want? Like, do you want a job and you want to go make good money in tech sales? Because it's hard to do the work and research and interview, right? Or you can keep not having a job and not being in tech sales. That's fine. That's hard too.
That's a good point. And I had the same comment from someone on Reddit like 2 weeks ago saying, yeah, but no, it wasn't. Sorry, that was on LinkedIn. And the guy was saying, yeah, but that's too much work. And I said, yeah, but you're supposed to only have 10 companies on your list and that's it. And if you do this research, like I was saying about this CEO, 6 interviews, yes, I can leverage that with him specifically, but also with the rest of the company, because if the CEO talks about those things, that's the same thing he's going to talk about with the VP of sales, with the marketing team. So it's not like just doing one research for one person. I have a vision. I understand what they're working on right now inside the company. Absolutely. Just based on that.
Yeah, and if you are serious about your job search, you should slow down and build a simple system around applying for jobs. It's like Abe Lincoln said something like, if I had an hour to chop down a tree, I would spend the first 45 minutes sharpening my axe. It's the same thing. It's not that hard, y'all. Think about what we're doing combined would take probably 15 minutes per company you apply to. Worth it to be the number 1% candidate in that pipeline.
Yeah, and maybe more than 15 minutes. I don't know. But
sorry,
at least
I'm talking about the transcripts, like pulling some out. You're right. To listen to multiple podcasts, you're right.
Yeah, no, because if I'm talking about the podcast, the way I was doing it, because at that time I didn't know about Perplexity, so maybe with Perplexity it's quicker to do that. But well, I was at the gym or working when I was listening to the podcast, so it wasn't like I was on my computer doing the research. I was just listening to it and taking notes when something was interesting. But yeah, like you said, for me, it's if you want to be whatever you have experience or no experience, it's like a sales job. Applying to a job is like a sales job. So, and if you want to be hired, that's why also I'm recommending most of the time with people I'm coaching, sometimes for SDRs coaching to get a new job, you should have like your dream companies you want to work at. 10 companies and that's it. And you work on those 10. You don't need 100 because it's too many. And when you are on an interview, you don't remember what they're currently doing. So
yeah, it's just like, especially for those SDRs out there, it's just like an enterprise SDR role. You don't have 1,000 accounts, you have 20, and you better know those 20 accounts because that's what's going to help you book those meetings and ultimately bring in a $50 million deal.
And also, just to finish on this question, then we move to the next one. If you do that, the hiring team is going to say, okay, this candidate really stand out on, obviously you have a lot of things you can assess, but just showing the research you've done, I don't think last company I interviewed like 30 people and maybe 2 or 3 did like a lot of research about the company.
Yeah. Sad.
Okay. And now last question. So you mentioned what questions you have for me. So why do you ask this question and what soft skills are you currently assessing with this question?
Yeah, this is my favorite question because you really can tell the quality of a candidate based on the questions they ask. Think about if you're hiring an SDR, they have to be curious, right? And curiosity is such a weird thing for us as adults because through school, we're told our whole lives like there's a binary black and white answer, right or wrong. Don't be curious. It's just here's the right answer. Multiple choice, here it is. But you have to develop this curiosity skill set to do well in sales. So like, Elric, I'm curious, like, why did you pick the color yellow for Sales Kitchen or Outbound Kitchen?
Because that's the graphic designer showed us like a different color patterns, and because I was the most elegant, I would say, the one we picked, because the branding Outbound Kitchen, for example, was we want to focus on like comparing sales to a restaurant and the fine dining experience, and that was, I would say, the colors that was the most aligned with this new branding. So that's why we picked yellow and black, actually.
Why do you feel it's important to look at sales through a restaurant lens?
I don't know for you, but for me, I think sales should be special. So you have specialization in sales, so SDR, AE, CSM, AMs. I know on LinkedIn you can read people saying no, but if you compare sales to restaurants, in a fine dining restaurant, we have specialization. You have a chef for the pastry, a chef for the dessert, then you have the head chef, then you have the chef in charge of the main dish, you have the person in charge of preparing everything that they need to cook. So that's why for me, it's important to compare the kitchen with sales.
Oh, that's beautiful. And this is a rabbit hole now, but I just have to say, I also feel like food, like restaurant food, outbound is an art and a science, right? And so it's the art of how pretty it looks, but the science of how the flavors work. So this is just a demonstration of curiosity, right? And so me asking the question, hey, what are your questions for me? This is my favorite question because they're going to show me how curious they are and how prepared they are. So I have to ask that because it's just an open mic for them to either mess up or to go crush it.
And that's also one of my favorite ways to assess on curiosity, because most of the time, what's happening, the biggest mistake I'm seeing SDRs on this part of the interview is they are just asking the question you can see on LinkedIn. So what's your quota attainment? What's the career path looks like at your company? And I understand why they're asking those questions because those questions are important for them to qualify if they want to work for the company. But an interview, and I know it sounds cliche, but the interview, we are qualifying them and they are qualifying us. And in this part of the interview, they should be doing both, not just getting information, knowing, okay, that's my company, that I want to work for this company. Yes, I understand that, but show me also you've done your research. Show me you are not asking those questions just to check a box. Because for me, if you ask me just core attainment and career path, it's just you have a checklist of questions and that's it. That's pretty much it. They're not curious about the company.
Exactly. Yeah. I think this is also kind of a spectrum. The worst you can do is say, no, I don't have any questions. Like, bye. You're done. You're not going anywhere. Really bad is like, yeah, what's the culture like over there? What's attainment like over there? What are the next steps? Like, that's really bad. Please don't just ask those 3 questions. Like, oh, I don't have any more questions. And then to your point, Elric, someone might have 5, 6 questions to qualify the company. But if they're not letting the company speak about the company, then it's not like a relationship. It's more like an interrogation of, are you good enough for me? So to your point, there should be that kind of back and forth, that free flow. One of the best questions I've heard recently was, hey, so from your perspective, can you kind of break down for me how I could come in and hit quota within the first 90 days? I think that's a beautiful question because it allows the interviewer to be the expert and to mentor and coach. And what you're trying to do is you want this interviewer to see you as being on their team. So now you just gave them an invite to come coach you and what that feels like. And it felt good for them to coach you and you took it well. But you're also asking a pointed question about how do I hit quota? Because that's what I'm coming here to do. And so I think that was a great question I recently heard.
There is this, but also the second part is what's your enablement program looks like at your company, because that's what also the second part of the question. They want to know what you are going to do also to help them. So for me, this part also, because if we talk about quota attainment, for example, if they want to go deeper on this question, not just, hey, what's your quota attainment on your team? For me, it's the basic way to do it. If you want to show that you've done your research, is I was on review, I saw your quota attainment of the sales team. It says 60%. Is it for the A team and the Z team? And here, for me, it's they've done more research because they've been on review, they check something specific about the company, and now they're more curious about the information they want to get. And then if it's 60% or not, whatever, but the goal here is to really show that you've done some research about the company, because you went to review and it takes a minute to go to review, check the quota attainment, for example.
Yeah, that's such a great example, Alric. And that's so easy. Just go to rep view and type it in, right? And see what's there. And one of the big parts of this part of the interview is you have to engage me if you're going to be an SDR. If you're going to be on the phones with people, you have to know how to like flow in a combo. And so if I say, yeah, our quota attainment is 72% right now for the team, and you just move on to your next question, this is now a transaction. This is not a relationship. This is not a conversation. So like, again, being curious would be like, that's awesome. So you guys are doing like pretty good overall. What are the top performers doing differently than the bottom performers? They're doing this. Okay, cool. Do you think it's realistic for a new hire to come in and like adopt that practice right away? Or how would it look like for me to go adopt that specific practice? Right. And so it's just this curiosity, this like ping pong game, back and forth, instead of like question, answer, question, answer.
Yeah, because for me, the quota attainment question is if, for example, it's 40% and it's decreasing, you can ask a follow-up question on, okay, what's your plan to get back the team on track, for example? Or you can have like more specific question about what the leadership is currently doing, and it shows that exactly you care about the information. It's not just, yeah, okay, 60%. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next question. Okay, so you already shared a story about that. So what's your tip for candidates to stand out in this part of the interview?
Yeah. So tip for me would be, don't make this hard on yourself. Don't try to come in and memorize 10 questions. Literally get a little notebook, write the questions down before the interview, and pull open the notebook in the interview. I do this, I encourage my candidates to do this for two reasons. One, if you're actively taking notes during an interview, that's really good. That tells me you're an active listener. I love seeing that. Now, if you're trying to take notes on your computer during an interview, immediate red flag. And it's not because maybe you really are taking notes, but I actually don't know that as the interviewer, and it messes with my mind. So yeah, bring a notepad, write your questions down. Then when you get to the question portion, say, hey, I actually did write down some questions that I prepared as I was researching. Here they are. Now you don't have to memorize them. They're literally in your notepad. Just read them.
I have a tip for that, specifically for the notes part. And that was from the hiring manager perspective, but also as a candidate, you can do that. Is every time I had like a candidate joining on call, I have a second screen and my notes are on the second screen. So I say, if I'm checking my second screen, I'm not on Slack. I'm upfront with them about that because I want to be transparent. I'm not on Slack talking to someone else. I'm just taking notes about what they're currently saying versus I don't know what this person is doing because I had hiring managers that I'm not going to mention here on calls that they were on Slack at the same time, and you can see that. And here, I can, like you are saying, I think they can do the same and say, okay, I'm taking notes, and they are upfront about it. And because in the remote environment, you can't see what they are, if they are really taking notes, but if they are saying it, maybe they. I would say trust them if they say yes. They are taking notes.
I would too. But as the interviewer, you have less to prove. You have more authority. So for you to tell me, and I've done that too, hey, candidate, just so you know, I've got a monitor over here. That's where I've got your resume and my notes. So if I'm typing and looking over here, that's what I'm doing. I get to do that because I have the authority. But you as the candidate, you can say, hey, I'm doing the same thing. And that's okay. But better is like, I just wouldn't even touch that. I would just go straight for the notebook. So there's zero question. There's zero question. So,
yep. Okay. And yeah, for me, I think we already mentioned what they could do. Mainly it's this part of the interview is, I forgot to ask you, because you said what question you have for me, but at the beginning of the interview, do you let them know they will have some time to ask questions? Or is it more like, you have 10 minutes left, you say, okay, what question you have for me? Or what's your
my
strategy?
preferred structure is the exact way I laid it out, where I'll say, hey, Elric, thanks so much for jumping on. Really excited to meet you. You had a good conversation with our recruiter. Goal of today is for me to get to know you a little bit more. And then I'm sure you have plenty of questions about the company because, everything's new to you. So I'm here to be a resource for you and make sure you understand what's going on over here. So we'll have plenty of time for your questions. Honestly, I do that on purpose because it makes them sweat a little bit. Like, crap, like I have to ask questions for 20 minutes. That's on purpose though. Yeah, you do. Yeah, of course you do. You should have a conversation with me. So we just go right after the first question. Tell me about yourself. What research have you done on our company? And then boom, right into questions. You get like 20 minutes of open space and you see how they do.
Nice. So for curiosity specifically, also on top of what you do here, on giving them like 20 minutes to ask questions, I do that also on mock calls for the cold call. When I'm evaluating them on the cold call, it's not like, are they doing the perfect cold call? I don't care about that. Actually, it's more, I'm evaluating a lot of things, but for curiosity specifically is, are they asking questions instead of pitching?
Yep.
Pretty much it. Okay. They just pitched. When I give an objection, do they ask questions? When I give them the permission to talk, are they asking questions? No? Okay. It's not the only way I'm using that for curiosity, but that's one way also to assess curiosity.
Agree. I fully agree, Elric. And so many people struggle with mock calls and interviews because it's like, what's the perfect script? What do I say? Hear it from Elric, hear it from myself. We don't care. That's not what this is about. In fact, anytime you start pitching, you're losing. Just ask questions. Hey, this is so-and-so with X company. I'm calling you because you're an X title. Are you guys having these challenges? Yeah, no, we're not. We already have someone in place for that. Cool, who is it? So, how long have you been with them? Oh, cool. What got you to sign up with them? Sweet. So are you still seeing that issue now? Yeah, well, kind of. It's better. Oh, cool. Tell me about the issue. Like, what happens? I'm not pitching at all. At the very end of the call, that's when it's like, hey, look, I think it probably makes sense to set some time up, blah, blah, blah.
And here, if you do that, obviously if you show that you are curious, but if you today talk about a competitor during the call, if you know how to handle this objection, it shows also that you already prepared the interview, because you can't you already know that, so it's easier for you to answer this. I don't think there will be that's the exact answer, obviously, as a hiring manager you want to hear, but if they just show you a little bit of research about the competitor, you know that they've done some research already.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I think that was the last question. Do you have anything else you want to share about tips for candidates on how they can stand out in the hiring process?
I get frustrated with candidates because there's so many good resources out there. Like Elric, you made a post, I think a couple months ago, with a treasure trove of resources for job seekers. If someone were to actually go through half of those and actually absorb and implement, they would go land a job in a month easily. And so the last thing I guess I have to say about all of this is, well, there's so many resources out there. Like Elric's got a ton of stuff. Obviously, the work I'm doing, I literally have a free school guide, a school community, and it shows you step by step how to go get a job as an SDR. The problem I always see with people, though, is they just don't implement. They just don't take the advice. And so if you're sitting there frustrated because you don't have a tech sales job, then go access the resources and go actually do it. Once you've tried all of it and you're 2 months down the road and just can't crack the code, cool, then I'll have some empathy and compassion for you, and then I'll jump in with you and figure out what do we need to change. But let's be real. If you look yourself in the mirror and you ask yourself, am I really doing everything I can do to go get this job? The answer is going to be no. And you have to deal with that reality, because Elric's life doesn't change. My life doesn't change. Tech sales doesn't change because you're not a part of it. So life goes on. So if you really want to land a job in tech sales, you need to actually go put in the work. You need to actually go access the resources that Elric makes available, I make available, everyone who's helping out here does, and go do it. And then we can talk about changes, improvements, whatever.
I think that's a good tip, because when at my previous company, I hired someone with 6 months of SDR experience. So I was looking for someone with some experience. It was not like someone from, just starting in tech sales. So, but I had candidates with 3 years experience. I have candidates, obviously, if you check their resume, you can say, oh yeah, this person looks better just on the resume. But just because what you just mentioned here, they were doing a lot of the things we talk about today in the hiring process. And I said, yeah, but actually, I think obviously experience is important, even though we're looking for experience because we are just building the team. But I want also someone who have all the right soft skills for this job, because I'm not going to say bad things about people working at Salesforce or Zendesk or companies like that. But for me, reps who are coming from those companies, I don't see them like, oh yeah, they are going to be the number one, the top performer on the team, because they are coming from a big company. They have everything ready for them. They have their account list, their contact data. They have everything. They just need to pick up the phone. And at the stage I was at, we are a startup. We don't have a lot of things built, so we need people that also can adapt to that. And yeah, obviously those candidates didn't get the job, but this person with 6 months, she got the job. She got the job because she did everything in the hiring process, because she showed me that she had the right soft skills to perform in the role.
Exactly. And look, I have compassion if you have a full-time job and you have kids and you don't have time to like full-time apply for tech sales jobs. I understand. The least you can do is go to something like Apollo, where there's free phone numbers, and go call hiring managers. Time and time again, still to this day, I see multiple posts from my SDR leader friends that say, I just got 2,000 applicants, 500 applicants, 3 people called me. Dude, just go pick up the phone. Don't even get into LinkedIn and sequencing and emails and all that. Just pick up the phone and call and leave a voicemail.
Yeah. That's, if you just do that, I think that was on your interview with Troy. You said that you got like 9 cold calls last time you post something on LinkedIn. Well, you know those 9 that just cold called you, you will interview them. Nice.
Absolutely.
And that's why I completely agree on that. Email, I don't know how many did you get some emails also from this post?
187 applicants total, 68 LinkedIn DMs, 13 emails, 9 calls, 7 voicemails, 10 text messages, 3 videos total.
Nice. Wow, at least you got like a lot of content. So videos, 3 videos, that's perfect. Even emails, 13, I think it's pretty okay. But yeah, I know it can be a lot depending on the size of the email also, because
that was the problem. They were all copy paste. They all look the same. So
copy paste or from ChatGPT, because that's I don't know if that's something you've seen also, but I have a lot of candidates when they apply, basically they use ChatGPT to say, yeah, I want to work as an SDR, and if it's not personalized even for the company, it's just you can say it's AI.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's why. And you said how many LinkedIn messages? 60?
68.
68. Right. And that's why also LinkedIn, I'm not saying it's not the right way to contact someone, a hiring manager, but if you post it on LinkedIn and you have 60 people, it's a lot. And the people, well, I didn't have anyone cold calling me, but I got like 5 people emailing me. I replied to all of them because it was just 5 people. On LinkedIn, I tried to reply to maybe half of them. I got like 50, 60, something like that, but half of them. But the rest, and I'm sorry about that, but you don't have enough time during the day to reply to everyone.
So to clarify, Elric, nobody cold called you.
Exactly. The point with that is use the channels that no one is using. So call is number 1. If it's email, don't write like a long email, a short one, and don't ask for the interview. It's more like, hey, what's the best way for me to be on your radar? And show you've done your research also. So it's not like asking for the interview, because if you applied and you fit, maybe not, you are the right profile, you will get the interview anyway. But if you on top of that, you call them, you send an email with some research, and you don't ask just for the interview, I think you will get the interview.
Yeah, I think a super simple win is call, leave voicemail, text. And when you text, you can even send them a video, just a little selfie video. Hey, I want to introduce myself. No one else is going to be doing that. So go to Apollo, go to the different tools out there, get the free trial, and just go call people.
That's that. And one last tip that I can share, and I know I'm coaching some SDR right now, someone who is getting his first job. So I train him to do a candidate deck. I don't know if you do that with your SDRs, but basically what it is something you were saying earlier is the persona you want to show. Do you understand that? Do you understand the pain also? But everything in a doc, and you send that when you apply, and you can show that also in the hiring process. But basically on the deck, you have like ICP, pick one account that you know it's the right ICP, map the account, show them basically who you are going to contact the company. If they are cold calling heavy, but record a video of you role playing on ChatGPT with AI, just to show them that you are comfortable to make a cold call with their buyer persona. If you don't know, or you prefer writing an email, write an email so you can show that you understand the persona, the pains that they're solving, and what they do. Just with that, you are doing something that no one is going to do. So
no one else is going to do it. So who's going to get the job? Yeah, it's a lot of work. Yeah, you have to put in some effort, but do you want the job? You don't have to have the job. The job isn't, you're not entitled to it. You get to go work for it.
Yeah. And because something I'm trying when I coach people also, it's because you don't see how many candidates they're interviewing. And so it's like you think you are doing a great job, but the problem is you don't know what your competitors are doing here. And the problem with that is you don't know if they're interviewing 50 people. And if you are just doing what you are supposed to do, you are not going to make it until the final interview.
I've never had a top performer just make 50 dials in a day. They do way more than that. So same rule applies.
Nice. Jack, thank you so much for being on this first, was a live we were supposed to be live, but it wasn't live, unfortunately, but next time I will be alive. But for everyone listening, where can people find you? Or what's the best way to find you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, Tech Sales Jack. Can join our free school community. It's called Breaking into Tech Sales. It's SKOOL, and it's on my LinkedIn as well. In that community is a free guide, step by step, shows you how to break into tech sales. And I would love to talk to you and figure out where you need help on your tech sales journey. At the same time, make sure you actually go put in the work first, because nothing's more annoying than lazy people who just want me to do work for them.
Well, thank you so much for sharing those tips. And I'll add also all the links in the podcast episode description so they can find everything and they can join your community. And for everyone listening, thank you for listening, and I see you on the next episode. If you find this episode with Jack useful, you might enjoy my newsletter, Outbound Kitchen. You receive a free version every Sunday, and there is also a paid version where you receive more in-depth content. I just sent the first one, the cold calling playbook for 2025, backed by data, and you will get also my Outbound Toolbox. If you're interested, subscribe using the link in the description.